Miss McMillan Parks had a dream. She, like Libba Cotton, grew up in the segregated South. As an African-American woman, teacher, and storyteller, Frances related to Libba. Joining Frances in her dream were Sandra Hurd and Joel Potash, who donated the seed money to get the LIBBA project underway. What motivated Libba, a domestic at age 9, songwriter at 11, and Grammy winner at 92? What was Libba's connection with the Seeger family? Why did Libba move to Syracuse? What did Libba have that inspired members of the Grateful Dead to visit her in Syracuse? Just as Pete Seeger, Bob Dylan, Mike Seeger, Taj Mahal, Peter, Paul, and Mary all were performing her songs. Now it's time to meet the librettist and composer.
Hi, I'm Victoria King, and I'm the director of this wonderful LIBBA Cotton project. And I'm here with my two colleagues, Mark Oliveri and Kyle Bass. And I'd like to ask you each a little bit about your background and how you came to this project. Mark, would you like to start?
Sure. I'm Mark Oliveri. I'm a professor of music at Hobart and William Smith Colleges in Geneva, New York, where I teach courses on music theory, music composition, and American popular music. So I teach a course on genealogy of hip hop, jazz, and rock and roll. So I'm quite familiar with American popular music. Several years ago, I wrote a piece for, it was kind of like a LIBBA Cotton, I think, retrospective. It was part of this performance series at Skinny Atlas. And I was asked to write a piece sort of honoring LIBBA Cotton. And what I came up with was a piece for flute and piano. And so I was asked to participate in this project, I think partly because of the musical rhetoric that I compose is informed a lot by jazz and blues and gospel music already. So it just seems sort of a natural fit paired with Kyle's prose.
Kyle?
Hello, I'm Kyle Bass, and I teach at Colgate University in the Department of Theater, where I teach courses in playwriting, screenwriting, and contemporary African-American drama. I'm also the Associate Artistic Director at Syracuse Stage. And I too come to this project through Neva. Kind of received a call from her. I'd written a play called Possessing Harriet that I think she saw, and dealt with a real life figure there, kind of in historical terms. And I had known about Libba, but hadn't really known a lot about her life. Was familiar with her music and more familiar with it now. And was interested in finding a way to investigate her spirit. I think that's the thing that is most interesting to me. So I'm happy to be working with Mark and you, Victoria, and seeing what we come up with. This thing we have not yet titled, and it just occurred to me. You know, the LIBBA Cotton Project, I'm afraid.
Yeah, my working title for the composition is Hear This Day.
Ah, all right.
On that very first scene that I
received.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And maybe LIBBA Cotton : Hear This Day.
Right.
Mark, your classical music has always incorporated various popular idioms. Did that prepare you for composing this score, or did you study and analyze LIBBA's songs in detail?
Yes. um, there are two possible ways to answer that question. I think the first is, as a composer, nothing really prepares you to tackle a new piece, right? You can do your homework, and things come up all the time that just sort of throw a wrench, right, in the gears. But certainly, I was just talking to a colleague the other day, and I shared the seventh scene with him, and we were sort of discussing like how difficult this might be for someone that is not an improviser, right? To score this stuff, right? To score this kind of free and rhythmically sort of nuanced in the language of sort of this folk and blues and jazz. So I think being an improvising musician and being able to sit at the piano and improvise these things in real time has certainly been an advantage. But I did also listen to quite a bit of LIBBA's music. Transferring that is quite difficult, right? From guitar to like a large ensemble. Yeah, so nothing quite prepared me for this, and it's a unique challenge.
Thank you. And now let's hear from our singers.
Celebration cast in bronze.
In bronze, in bronze.
To celebrate in song.
In song, here in this grove, here this day, we gather to celebrate. Together, some mother, we
Celebrate a musician. We genius, we celebrate.
a woman called LIBBA. LIBBA, cotton, LIBBA, cotton, LIBBA, cotton. Here Lord, do Lord, to remember me. Do Lord, do Lord, do remember me. Do Lord, do Lord, do remember me. Do Lord, remember me. My mother always said, I'm going in front and everything will be alright. When I'm dying, do remember me. When I'm dying, do remember me. When I'm dying, do remember me. Do Lord, do remember me. Are you an old lady? Yes, but I'm done getting old. Where are you going? Home. Home to yes, my days are done now. Glory, glory, home to the Lord. Only way I know backwards, back the way I come. To mother and daddy, and to brother Clyde. Choo choo choo, chugga 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 choo choo choo, chugga 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 choo choo choo, chugga 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 choo choo choo, chugga 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 chugga.
And when I'm there to my Lord,
Lord,
if you'll have me, and I'll be fine when I'm home.
choo choo choo, chugga 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 chugga, going home.
Wonderful. And now back to our interview. Maybe our listeners aren't aware of the interesting way or unique way that LIBBA played guitar and banjo. Could one of you speak to that?
I'll jump in, sure. So she had a very unique way of playing. She was left-handed, but played a right-handed guitar. So she had to turn it around and upside down and backwards in order to play. And this really influenced her picking style, which has come to be known as cotton picking. Cotton picking, C-O-T-T-E-N, let's be clear. Mark, chime in if I get this wrong, but she played the melody with the opposite hand, essentially, and it created a very unique, not only unique style of playing, but the sound it produced, obviously, is unique as well. So one of the, and I can speak to this a little bit, but that the fact that she played the guitar situated that way kind of turned around, really influenced the structure of my libretto. That idea of moving from the back to the front, turning her story around, and starting at the end and moving to the beginning.
That's a very interesting dramatic way of looking at this play. And it also influenced another dramatic structure of the play. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Sure. So she had a strict 6-string guitar, and it was a Stella, I believe was the name of the brand had named the guitar Stella. LIBBA Cotten's story isn't, her personal life isn't, the details of it aren't really known. I mean, it's so that the research was interesting. And with the challenge as a dramatist, which is my job on this project, was that her life, in fact, was not terribly dramatic beyond the fact that she was a woman of color in the South of a certain time. And we can understand the kinds of like drama that kind of can create in one's life. But you know, there weren't these great sort of dramatic markers in her life. Things happened, and then things happened, and then things happened, and then the folk world knew who she was. So the challenge in telling her story was like, so how do I write this that it has some sort of engagement without really having kind of an inherent conflict. I mean, things kind of get in her way, but there just wasn't there wasn't a lot of dramatic stuff. And we think about, and I know that we've used the term opera very loosely here. And I think that seems right for the subject matter. So for me, it became the idea of how do I explore this idea of the spirit, and how do I make a text that its theatricality becomes the focal point, that the figure moving back in time and in a liminal space. So we meet, when the piece opens, we meet LIBBA essentially on the very last moment of her life, and then she enters a kind of liminal space as she begins a kind of journey home. And I mean that obviously home for her, she was a religious woman, home in the spiritual sense, right, home to her creator, but also tying that to a journey through a liminal space to her childhood home, to the home of her inspiration, to the home of her first musical ideas. So I was really interested in doing that, and using the Greek chorus and making them the guitar was again this idea of theatricality that was going to be important to the piece, because many of the dramatic things that I would, that I could invent for her, I would have a grand time in making up stuff, but that's not what I'm up to here, right? And because we don't really know about her inner personal life, the research does not reveal, yes, she was married, yes, she was divorced, yes, that sounds dramatic, but we don't know the details, right? That stuff's not out there.
She didn't have a Twitter account. She didn't have an Instagram.
Yeah, right, okay, she never, right, exactly right. She wasn't living her private life in public.
Did the idea that the grove is the LIBBA Cotton Grove in Syracuse is shaped like this, like a guitar?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think I think in the back of you hold all on some level you do the research and then you try to forget it, and then you try not to like dishonor it, because it is a creative work. I'm not a historian.
Right.
I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the spirit of this woman. And yes, part of the story, I think perhaps the most, two things happen. She's playing guitar, and then she joins the church, and then she has to put the guitar down for, to save her soul, which is the irony of the piece, is that it's so much, it lives in that space that, she's convinced that, to be a proper church, God-fearing woman, that sort of music is sinful. And so she is silenced. You know, Victoria phrase you used, that she's shut down. And she is. I wish I knew what her suffering might have been about that, but that's simply not out there, right? And so on some level you can think about it, and I've given her things to say that are about, that happening. So that event actually is very big in the piece, where she is, put down that guitar, come away, LIBBA, that whole moment. But then, of course, but things just happen. And so she's working as a woman, she's working in a department store, and a little white girl gets lost, and that little white girl's mother is, is Peggy is Seeger, and the great, folk singing and interested family. And they sort of, quote unquote, discover her, but not until they bring her into their house as a domestic. And then as the story goes, and I understand it, they kind of hear someone playing guitar. And so it's many decades later that she picks up that guitar again. Now she's in her 60s. And she picks up that guitar, and she happens to be in the home of people who recognize, appreciate, and are conservators in some level of this music, right? And suddenly out of their kitchen, right, with the smell of the soup and the steak, is this music that's coming. And they're like, what on earth? And so they take her on tour, and and then she becomes a legend in folk music. But the timing was right too, because of course we had a lot of white folks doing folk music. We had a lot of, something very, I won't quite call it appropriation, because it wasn't that. It was really honorific, I believe. But then there was a movement toward more authenticity, and what could possibly be more authentic than LIBBA Cotton, who taught herself to play, a Black woman coming out of the South, playing this music that is folk, but that it holds gospel, as Mark was talking about, it holds the blues as well, right? So she was a treasure, because, like this living sort of artifact and proof, right? And so, and in some ways, she legitimizes the Seegers and the work that they're doing, because they bring her in, right? And yes to all that, but the piece is really about how is it that there's a statue in Syracuse, New York, to this woman, and what do we learn about her as we situate her in again, as I said, a liminal space as she moves toward home, both metaphysically and nostalgically.
Thank you. And now let's hear from our singers.
LIBBA in our kitchen.
Washing plates and pans.
LIBBA in our kitchen?
Making busy hands.
LIBBA in our kitchen.
I found an old guitar. Fingers, remember heart. Come on now, left hand. You used to know this part. These are the old songs. This here's tune brand new. This hymn's got my take on it. This song's just for you.
Play like that.
Nobody except you.
LIBBA, who taught you to play like that?
Nobody did teach me. Nobody did. Just me.
A simple tune.
Repeats itself.
Only a few modest variations.
Her left hand, effortless.
It's superb. It's genius.
Well, never mind those dishes. And never mind those chores. You can't be our little secret, LIBBA.
That's folk music from the source.
So never mind those dishes. Just never mind those chores.
What a find you are, LIBBA.
Come away, LIBBA.
You can't be our little secret, LIBBA.
Come away, LIBBA.
So come away now, LIBBA. We're taking you on tour.
Come away, LIBBA.
We're taking you on tour.
Come away from the guitar, LIBBA. Put the devil music down.
Sing on.
Said come away now, LIBBA, from that guitar.
Say my little sisters, soul.
Put the devil music down.
Sing wild. lyrics itinerant.
Yes.
That's worldly, loose warm and music you're playing with.
Preach,
Why you think they call it the blues?
preach. I just sing what's in my heart.
Sing the gospel with your heart, little sister. Praise Jesus with your song.
It was God give me my songs.
Was God give you your voice? Was the devil put that worldly music in your left hand?
Sing, come away from the guitar, LIBBA.
Put the devil music on.
Down. Leave it all behind, sister.
Put the devil music
Down.
Said come away now, LIBBA, from that guitar.
Wonderful. And now back to our interview.
What was it like working together? Had you met before?
Terrible. He is so difficult. I'm constantly having to talk him down from the ledge. No, no. You know what's cool is I don't want to speak for Kyle, but super. He's super easy to work with, and has been incredibly patient with me with all my questions. But I think we have a real symbiosis. I think there's an energy there, and I think we understand the final product, like what we want to do. And it's been great. Like I'll just text him and say, hey, I have a question about the prose. Like, did you mean this word, or or did you mean this? Like really simple, tiny stuff. And sometimes he'll respond back with a text, and if it's something that he thinks is greater, again, Kyle, I don't want to speak for you, right? But he'll say, let's get on the phone. Maybe we need to have a Zoom discussion about this thing that I think maybe you're thinking about it a different way. And so we'll talk it through, and we'll get whatever it is that needs to be resolved. So.
Yeah, we had not met before this project, and we had a meeting out at Hobart William Smith very early on to meet and just to kind of get on some sort of track in some direction
without face masks.
Yeah, it was pre-COVID. It's been that. It seems like like 1,000 years ago now, and it's been great to work with Mark because this is, although I've written a lot of plays and a lot of other things, this is my first go at a libretto, and really understanding that, and again using the idea of opera sort of loosely here, but to know that this is really the composer's medium. Yes. And so really kind of stepping, as a playwright, it's very different in the theater, right? It's like, but also really liking this. So I saw my job really is not only telling the story, but also in whatever way that I could, was to inspire Mark in his work. And that's really what I was like, okay, so what can I put on the page that would inspire the composer? And really thinking about that. And in this way, it relates to my playwriting, because when I'm writing a play, I'm never thinking about the audience. I'm only really ever thinking about the actor. I consider myself a composer, and I compose for an instrument called an actor. So I'm really interested in that. So in this way, I was composing for an instrument called the composer. And that's Mark, right? And so I wanted to put things on the page that would excite him. And so it was exciting when he got the first pages and he said, oh, this looks like music. I thought, yes, great.
Oh, that's really,
and that was exciting. And I'm also trained in music. And so when Mark would send me things, I could take it to my piano and I could play it and read through the score and see what he was up to and listen to it, or he would play something and we listened to it together. So it was very exciting. I think there are other ways in which librettists and composers work, and I've learned things that I might approach differently the next time. But it has been great dealing with a very willing to ask questions and willing to discuss what those answers might be, but also knowing that as a librettist, the thing I'm writing to give away. And I'm giving it to Mark, who gives it to the actors, who gives it to the director, and who gives it to the audience ultimately. So I keep being removed from the process, and I'm good with that. I'm in the process, but you know what I'm saying. So I'm excited. It's been exciting to work with Mark in that way.
Mark, what were you going to say about text?
Oh, I was commenting on how generous Kyle has been in terms of, I thought I would be like, hey, Kyle, I'd like to maybe set this for more voices, and it's set for one person, or I want to take it from the chorus maybe and just have one person sing this line because I think it works better, and I don't know, I know how particular artists can be, I just imagine Kyle just going, oh, come on, man, no way, and he was like, yeah, that's fine, and we read through it together, and he, there was some happy medium. We would have a discussion about it, and he'd say like, how about this, and I'd be like, all right, that's good. So, because I think ultimately we want what's best for the text, right? And how is this going to be most effectively communicated through the music? And that's something that we worked on together sometimes through this process.
Mark, could you speak to how you wove LIBBA's songs from the early 20th century into a 21st century score?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in weaving music. Composers do that thing all the time, right? Where they're sometimes quoting other composers, but as a jazz musician, we do it quite a bit, right? So sometimes you hear bits of solos that other people play in your own solos. So jazz musicians quote a lot, and I've always kind of enjoyed that idea of weaving music that sometimes is familiar, and if you're in on the joke, so to speak, right? So I use sometimes I quote Wagner in a piano trio or something, and if you have a lot of music literacy, you might hear that and go, oh yeah, I get that, right? I get that reference. So it is a challenge to quote someone else's work, like in this case with LIBBA COTTEN, but and it's a great responsibility, right? Because you're recontextualizing this thing, and you want to do it justice, right? This thing that's already so good on its own. How do I take this work that is already great and weave it into the language that I'm writing? But I rather enjoy that. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. If you like puzzles,
Well, I appreciate all of your candor, and I look forward to continuing working on this piece and when we finally get to do it live and in person.
Yay!
Very good. Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Victoria. Hello, I'm Mark Libieri. I'm the composer writing the opera on Elizabeth Cotten. And the working title is Here This Day, which refers to the first scene by librettist Kyle Bass. So I was just going to talk a little bit about the musical rhetoric of this composition, and maybe show a little bit of one of the movements that I'm currently working on. So, in writing this piece, because it's a historical piece on a historical figure, there is a lot of blues and gospel rhetoric in this piece. So you hear a lot of music, reminiscent of Southern gospel music from the 1920s through the 1960s. That kind of sort of church gospel feel, Southern gospel. I didn't grow up listening to a lot of gospel, with some exceptions, the music of Ray Charles and his gospel work. And there's a really great album by Aretha Franklin called Amazing Grace that she recorded at her brother's church in Los Angeles in 1972. And I remember hearing a recording of What a Friend We Have in Jesus. And some of the characteristics of that tune find its way in my opera, and that sort of thing is like these blues licks that are sort of not in the key necessarily, but what we call traditionally in jazz or blues, blue notes, and just kind of vamping back and forth oscillating between two chords. So something like this. Okay, and What a Friend We Have in Jesus sort of starts like that. Okay, that kind of feel. And so another thing that was quite indicative of the style is these ascending harmonic lines or descending lines that are really close together. So where they have a singer singing on one pitch maybe, and just contextualizing that pitch with new harmonies. Right? I thought I'd show you a little bit of a section that I'm working on, and this particular section is from scene 4. It's called A Place with My Name, and young LIBBA is walking into the park in Syracuse with her statue in bronze, and the text goes, "I know this place, it has my name, but something here is not the same. I'm standing here, yet I'm sitting right there too." And then it goes on, "It's cold as stone, or is it bronze?" And I kind of wanted this reflective music. So it's not, like the opening scene where we're celebrating LIBBA's life. This is young LIBBA, and she's kind of really reflective and sort of taking everything in. But I am doing that, this thing where she's just kind of in this one place, and I wanted to represent that musically. So I have this note that she's singing around, this F natural, and I keep on having her come back to this note. As you hear a descending progression in the rest of the parts. Okay, so here is the score that I was referring to, the scene where LIBBA walks into the park and encounters her statue for the first time. So you'll hear that descending figure in the piano line. It's just doing this. Okay, through everything you see here, through that vocal line, okay? So we just hear these chords. And then it's just slightly different. Bass stays the same, that F natural in the bass, and then again. And then again. Okay. So we hear a series of 4 chords with just sort of like the bass being the same. It's just reharmonized, okay? So it's starting like this. repeat again. And maybe with a little bit more improvisation the next time. So it's kind of swung, right? I wrote this to be swung, but maybe the next time through the vocal line will be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit different anyway because of the text, right? But I imagine when I sit down to write this, I improvise a lot through the score. Okay, so something like that, right? So there's a lot of sitting down at the piano and pawing and trying out ideas, and then having some sort of structure, but it's very loose in terms of how that vocal line unfolds. A lot of it depends on the text, right? So we want to follow sort of the natural speech inflections in the text. So that was one example of my process of compositional process, rather. I'm an improviser. I'm a jazz pianist, and I worked for many years as a dance accompanist. So that's really informed a lot of the way that I compose music today. Not unlike many composers, they improvise at the piano and then write, but a lot of the music that I write is informed by the music I grew up listening to and the music that I like. I also direct a jazz ensemble, and so I'm surrounded by jazz musicians. I'm surrounded by that language all the time. So the language of blues and gospel and R&B and jazz, rock and roll even, finds a way to really, make its way to my music. And so I hope you enjoyed that little insight into the opera about LIBBA, and look forward to seeing you in a concert hall sometime soon.
Take long, sing it right once or twice. Oh, lie to me, didn't I shake sugary? Everything I got is done in part. Everything I got is done in part. Pawn my watch, pawn my chain, pawn everything that was in my name. Oh, lie to me, didn't I shake sugary? Everything I got is done in pawn. Everything I got is done in pawn. Pawn my buggy, horse and cot, pawn everything that was on my lot. Oh, lie to me, didn't I shake sugary? Everything I got is done in pawn. Everything I got is done in pawn. Pawn my chair, pawn my bed, ain't got nowhere to lay my head. Oh, lie to me, didn't I shake sugary? Everything I got is done in pawn. Everything I got is done in pawn. Pawn my tobacco, pawn my pipe, pawn everything that was in my sight. Oh, lie
out of me, didn't I shake sugary? Everything I got is done in palm. Everything I got is done in palm. Have a little secret I ain't gonna tell. I'm going to heaven in a ground pea shell. Oh, out of me, didn't I shake sugary? Everything I got is done in palm. Everything I got is done in palm. Palm my farm, palm my plow, pawn everything, even pawn my old cow. Oh, out of me, didn't I shake sugary? Everything I got is done in palm. Everything I got is done in palm. Pawn my hat, pawn my shoes, pawn everything that I could use. Oh, out of me, didn't I shake sugary? Everything I got is done in palm. Everything I got is done in palm. Have a little secret I ain't gonna tell. I'm going to heaven and I ain't gonna. Oh, out of me, didn't I shake sugary? Everything I got is done in palm. Everything I got is done in palm. Chew my tobacco, spit my juice. Would raise Cain, but it ain't a bit of use. Oh, out of me, didn't I shake sugary? Everything I got is done in palm. Everything I got is done in palm. Everything